My brothers and sisters, dear friends, let me begin with a simple question. Have you ever wondered why some people walk into a room and, without raising their voice, without demanding attention, they are respected, not feared, not admired for a moment, but genuinely respected? There is a quiet strength about them, a calm presence, and it makes us pause. You see, respect is not something you can force from people. It cannot be borrowed, and it certainly cannot be demanded. It is earned slowly, gently, and often without us even realizing how it happens. Psychology teaches us something very beautiful here. The way we carry ourselves on the inside eventually shows on the outside. In a world where everyone is trying to be heard, the most respected individuals are often those who listen. In a time when many are rushing to prove themselves, the most honored are those who are comfortable with who they are. They don't need to impress, they seek to improve. They don't react to every provocation, they respond with wisdom. Today I want to share with you a few powerful insights, simple, practical, and deeply transformative. These are not tricks, and they are not about manipulation. They are about understanding human nature, refining our character, aligning our behavior with values that naturally invite respect. If you take these lessons to heart, you will notice a change not just in how people treat you, but in how you see yourself. And when self-respect is planted firmly in the heart, respect from others follows. By the will of the one who created hearts to recognize truth and sincerity. Let us reflect deeply on one powerful truth. People naturally respect those who know how to listen more than they speak. This may sound simple, but its impact is profound. In psychology and in life itself, listening is not a passive act. It is an expression of confidence, humility, emotional intelligence, and self-control. And these qualities, whether people realize it consciously or not, command respect. Think about it for a moment. When someone listens to you attentively without interrupting, without checking their phone, without rushing to reply, you feel valued. You feel seen. You feel heard. That feeling stays with you. And naturally, you begin to respect the person who gave you that space. Not because they said something impressive, but because they made you feel important. Those who speak excessively often believe that respect comes from proving intelligence, dominance, or authority. But psychology shows us something different. When a person talks too much, they often reveal insecurity. They fear silence. They fear being overlooked. They feel the need to fill every gap with words, explanations, opinions. Ironically, this weakens their presence. People may listen for a while, but over time, they tune out. The value of words decreases when they are abundant. On the other hand, the one who listens carefully speaks with intention. Their words carry weight because they are fewer. When they finally speak, people lean in. Why? Because they know this person has thought before speaking. They have observed. They have understood. Silence, when used wisely, becomes a source of strength. From a psychological perspective, active listening signals emotional maturity. It shows that you are not threatened by other people's ideas. You are not desperate to dominate the conversation. You are secure enough to allow others to express themselves fully. This security is deeply attractive and respectable. Human beings instinctively respect those who are at ease with themselves. Listening also gives you power, not power over people, but power in understanding them. When you listen, you learn what motivates them, what hurts them, what they value. This insight allows you to respond wisely rather than react emotionally. Many conflicts escalate not because of major disagreements, but because people feel unheard. When you listen, you lower defenses. You create trust. And trust is one of the strongest foundations of respect. There is also an element of discipline here. Not every thought needs to be spoken. Not every emotion needs to be expressed immediately. Psychology teaches us that self-regulation is a key marker of respected individuals. When you pause, listen, and choose your words carefully, you demonstrate control over yourself. And the one who can control themselves will always be respected more than the one who tries to control others. Consider leadership. The most respected leaders are rarely the loudest in the room. They ask questions. They listen to feedback. They allow others to contribute. This does not make them weak, it makes them wise. People feel safe around such individuals. They feel that their voices matter. As a result, they offer loyalty, cooperation, and respect willingly, not out of fear, but out of appreciation. Listening also humbles the ego. And humility, contrary to what many believe, does not reduce respect, it increases it. When someone listens sincerely, they admit, without words, I don't know everything. I can learn from you. This mindset elevates them. Psychology shows that people admire those who are open to growth more than those who pretend to have all the answers. Another important aspect is empathy. When you listen with the intention to understand rather than to reply, you connect emotionally. This emotional connection strengthens relationships. And respect grows naturally in relationships where people feel understood. Even when there is disagreement, respectful listening communicates. One powerful message: you matter, even if I don't agree with you. In everyday life, this principle can transform how people perceive you. In conversations, allow pauses. Let others finish their thoughts. Resist the urge to interrupt or correct. Ask thoughtful questions instead of making statements. Over time, people will notice something different about you. They may not be able to name it, but they will feel it. They will feel calmer around you. They will trust you more. And with trust comes respect. Psychology also highlights that good listeners are perceived as more intelligent. This may seem surprising, but studies consistently show that people who listen attentively are rated as wiser and more competent. Why? Because listening suggests discernment. It suggests that you are gathering information before forming conclusions. And in a world full of quick judgments and instant reactions, discernment stands out. Let us be honest with ourselves. How often do we listen just to reply? How often are we waiting for our turn to speak instead of truly absorbing what is being said? The moment we shift that intention from responding to understanding, we change the entire dynamic of our interaction. Respect does not come from dominating conversations. It comes from mastering yourself within them. It comes from knowing when to speak and when silence is more powerful. It comes from recognizing that every person you encounter has something to teach you, if only you are willing to listen. So if you want people to respect you at work, at home, in your community, start with this simple but life-changing practice. Listen more than you speak. Not as a technique, not as a strategy, but as a reflection of your character. When your listening is sincere, your presence becomes meaningful. And when your presence is meaningful, respect follows naturally. There is a powerful difference between being loud and being confident, and psychology makes this distinction very clear. Loud authority often demands attention, but calm confidence naturally attracts it. People may obey loudness for a moment, but they respect calmness for a lifetime. When someone carries themselves with quiet assurance, without arrogance and without insecurity, sends a strong psychological signal, this person is grounded, stable, and in control of themselves. Calm confidence begins internally. It is not about posture alone or tone, of voice alone or appearance alone. Those are only reflections. True calm confidence comes from self-belief that is not shaken by opinions, criticism, or comparison. When a person does not feel the need to constantly prove their worth, others feel it immediately. There is a sense of ease around them. And ease psychologically creates trust. People trust those who are not frantic, not defensive, and not desperate for validation. Loud authority, on the other hand, often comes from fear. Fear of losing control, fear of being ignored, fear of not being respected. So the person raises their voice, dominates conversations, interrupts others, or constantly reminds people of their position or power. Psychology tells us that when authority is forced, respect becomes fragile. It exists only as long as fear exists. Once fear disappears, respect disappears with it. Calm confidence does the opposite. It does not chase respect. It does not demand recognition. It allows actions, consistency, and composure to speak. When someone remains calm under pressure, people notice. When others are reacting emotionally and one person remains steady, that person becomes a reference point. Human beings are drawn to stability. In moments of uncertainty, we look for those who are composed, and we respect them instinctively. One of the strongest psychological signals of calm confidence is emotional regulation. When someone can manage their emotions instead of being controlled by them, it shows maturity. It shows strength. Anyone can shout. Anyone can react. But it takes inner discipline to pause, to breathe, and to respond thoughtfully. This restraint is deeply respected because it reflects mastery over the self. And psychology is clear on this. People who can control themselves are perceived as more powerful than those who try to control others. Calm confidence also allows space for others. It does not feel threatened by different opinions or strong personalities. When someone is secure, they do not need to dominate. They can disagree without disrespect. They can correct without humiliation. They can lead without intimidation. This makes people feel safe. And safety is one of the strongest foundations of respect. People respect those around whom they can be themselves without fear of being belittled. In social situations, calm confidence is often misunderstood as silence or softness. But it is neither weakness nor passivity. It is strength with wisdom. It is knowing when to speak. And when silence carries more power. Psychology shows that people who speak slowly, thoughtfully, and with purpose are perceived as more credible. Their words land deeper because they are not rushed or emotionally charged. Think about conflict. When tension rises, most people either withdraw completely or react aggressively. But the calmly confident individual stands firm without escalating. They acknowledge emotions without being ruled by them. They do not insult. They do not shout. They do not rush to win the argument. Instead, they seek clarity and resolution. This behavior earns respect even from those who disagree because it demonstrates fairness and self-respect. Another important element is body language. Calm confidence reflects itself in relaxed posture, steady eye contact, and controlled movements. Psychology tells us that non-verbal cues often communicate more than words. A person who is at ease in their body appears trustworthy and capable. They do not fidget excessively or display nervous habits. This does not mean perfection. It means presence. Being fully present in the moment sends a message of confidence that others subconsciously register. Calm confidence also removes the need to compete unnecessarily. Loud authority often compares itself constantly, needing to be superior, louder, or more dominant. Calm confidence does not measure itself against others. It knows its value without needing to announce it. And when someone does not compete for attention, they often receive it anyway. People are curious about those who are not trying to impress them. In leadership, relationships, and daily interactions, this quality changes how people respond to you. Instructions given calmly are followed more willingly than commands shouted in anger. Boundaries stated with confidence are respected more than boundaries enforced with threats. Psychology shows that people respond better to firmness combined with respect than to aggression combined with control. It is also important to understand that calm confidence grows with self-acceptance. When you accept your strengths and your weaknesses, you stop overcompensating, you stop pretending, you stop reacting defensively when challenged. This authenticity is deeply respected. People can sense when confidence is real and when it is an act. Loud authority often feels performative. Calm confidence feels genuine. This does not mean you will never feel fear or doubt. It means you do not let those feelings define your behavior. You acknowledge them privately and act wisely publicly. Over time, this consistency builds a reputation. People begin to describe you as steady, reliable, and strong. These are not loud compliments, but they are meaningful ones. And they come from respect. In a world that often rewards noise, choosing calm confidence is a quiet rebellion. It is choosing depth over display, substance over show. Psychology teaches us that the human mind is drawn to those who appear centered because they represent something we all seek: inner peace and self-control. When you walk with calm confidence, you no longer need to announce yourself. Your presence does that for you. Your words carry weight because they are not wasted. Your silence is not awkward, it is dignified. And people, without you ever asking, begin to respect you not because you demanded it, but because you embodied it. There is a deep and often overlooked connection between respect and boundaries. Psychology teaches us that the way you allow people to treat you silently educates them on how to treat you in the future. Boundaries are not walls meant to push people away. They are lines of clarity that protect your self-respect. And when you honor your own boundaries, others learn consciously or unconsciously to honor you as well. Many people struggle with boundaries because they confuse kindness with self-sacrifice. They believe that saying yes all the time makes them likable, that tolerate disrespect makes them patient, and that avoiding confrontation keeps peace. But psychology reveals a different truth. When you constantly overextend yourself, when you allow others to cross your limits without consequence, you send a message that your time, energy, and feelings are negotiable. Over time, people may not intend to disrespect you, but they will because you have taught them that it is acceptable. Respect begins internally. If you do not value your own limits, others will not either. Boundaries are a reflection of self-worth. They say, without aggression and without apology, this is where I stand. And when someone stands firmly yet calmly, people take notice. They may test those boundaries at first, but consistency teaches them that those limits are real. One of the most powerful psychological aspects of boundaries is predictability. People feel more comfortable and respectful around those who are consistent. When your behavior changes depending on mood, pressure, or fear of rejection, others become unsure of how to treat you. But when your boundaries are clear and stable, people know what to expect. That clarity builds trust, and trust deepens respect. Setting boundaries does not require harshness. In fact, the most respected boundaries are communicated with calmness and respect. Psychology shows that when boundaries are expressed clearly and without emotional charge, they are more likely to be accepted. You do not need to explain yourself excessively. Over-explaining often signals guilt or uncertainty. A simple, respectful statement delivered with confidence is enough. For example, when you protect your time, you teach people that your commitments matter. When you say no to what drains you, you preserve energy for what aligns with your values. This self-respect does not go unnoticed. People may not always like your boundaries, but they will respect them if you enforce them consistently. And respect does not require approval from everyone. There is also an important psychological link between boundaries and resentment. When boundaries are weak, resentment grows silently. You may smile on the outside while feeling taken advantage of on the inside. Over time, this inner conflict affects your tone, your patience, and your relationships. People sense this tension, even if they do not understand its source. Clear boundaries prevent this emotional buildup. They allow you to interact with others from a place of sincerity rather than suppressed frustration. Boundaries also reveal character. When someone watches, you uphold your values. Even when it is uncomfortable, they recognize strength. It is easy to be principled when there is no cost. It is harder when saying no risks disappointment or disagreement. Psychology shows that individuals who are willing to tolerate short-term discomfort for long-term integrity are seen as more respectable. They are not easily swayed. They are not easily pressured. And that steadiness commands respect. In relationships, boundaries create balance. Without them, one person often carries more emotional weight than the other. Over time, This imbalance leads to loss of respect on both sides. The one who gives too much feels depleted, and the one who takes too much may begin to see the other as weak or dependent. Healthy boundaries restore equality. They allow both people to give and receive with dignity. At work, boundaries are equally important. When you allow constant interruptions, unrealistic expectations, disrespectful communication, you signal that professionalism is optional. But when you calmly uphold standards, whether it is how you are spoken to, how your time is used, or how your role is respected, you elevate how others perceive you. Psychology shows that people respect those who respect their own role and responsibilities. Another important element is that boundaries help define identity. When you are clear about what you accept and what you do not, you become more grounded. This groundedness is felt by others. You are no longer easily influenced by guilt, fear, or the need to please. Instead, your actions align with your values. This alignment creates inner confidence, and inner confidence naturally attracts respect. Some people fear that boundaries will make them seem selfish or distant. But psychology indicates the opposite. When boundaries are healthy, relationships become more authentic. People know where they stand with you. There is less confusion, less emotional guessing, and fewer unspoken expectations. This clarity strengthens respect because it reduces manipulation and misunderstanding. It is also important to understand that boundaries teach people how to love and interact with you properly. When you do not communicate limits, people fill in the gaps with their own assumptions. These assumptions often lead to behaviors that feel disrespectful. Clear boundaries remove guesswork. They guide others toward healthier interaction. Boundaries must also be maintained, not just declared. The moment you abandon your boundary out of fear or guilt, you weaken it. Psychology shows that inconsistency invites testing. People may push limits to see if they are real. Calm reinforcement, not anger, not justification, is what establishes credibility. Over time, people stop pushing because they understand that your boundaries are not emotional reactions but principles. Ultimately, boundaries are not about controlling others. They are about honoring yourself. And when you honor yourself, you teach others to do the same. Respect grows where self-respect is visible, not through confrontation, not through dominance, but through quiet firmness. When you stand by your boundaries with grace, you send a powerful message. I value myself and I value you enough to be honest. That message lingers. It shapes how people approach you, speak to you, and treat you. And in a world where many people abandon themselves to please others, the one who holds their ground with wisdom will always be respected. One of the most powerful yet underestimated foundations of respect is consistency. Consistency between what you believe, what you say, and what you do. Psychology teaches us that the human mind is constantly searching for patterns. When people interact with you, they are unconsciously asking, can I predict this person? Not in a manipulative way, but in a way that helps them feel safe. And when your values, words, and actions align over time, you become someone others trust. Where there is trust, respect naturally follows. Many people lose respect, not because they are unkind or incapable, but because they are inconsistent. One day they stand firmly for something, and the next day they abandon it under pressure. One moment they speak about principles, and the next they act in ways that contradict them. Psychology shows that this inconsistency creates uncertainty. People may still like you, but they hesitate to rely on you. And without reliability, respect weakens. Consistency does not mean perfection. It does not mean never making mistakes. It means that when you make a mistake, you acknowledge it and correct it. That correction itself becomes part of your consistency. People respect those who take responsibility more than those who pretend they are flawless. Owning your actions reinforces the alignment between your values and your behavior. When your words and actions match, your credibility increases. Credibility is not built in grand moments. It is built in small, repeated choices. Keeping promises, honoring commitments, and following through even when it is inconvenient send a strong psychological message. This person means what they say. Over time, people stop questioning your intentions because your behavior answers those questions for you. Psychology also highlights the importance of moral consistency. When you treat people with fairness, regardless of their status, mood, or benefit to you, others notice. If your kindness only appears when it is convenient, or your integrity disappears when there is something to gain, people sense it quickly. Human beings are remarkably sensitive to hypocrisy. It erodes respect faster than almost anything else. Consistency in values also creates inner peace. When you are not constantly switching masks to fit situations, you conserve mental and emotional energy. This calmness shows in how you speak, how you respond, and how you make decisions. People feel at ease around those who are not fragmented inside. Psychology shows that inner alignment produces outer confidence, and that confidence earns respect. Another important dimension is consistency under pressure. Anyone can act principled when circumstances are easy, but when stress, fear, or temptation appear, true character is revealed. If you remain aligned with your values, even when it costs you something, people remember that. They may not praise you openly, but your reputation grows quietly. And reputation, once established, becomes one of the strongest forms of respect. In relationships, consistency builds emotional safety. When people know you will respond with fairness, honesty, and stability, they feel secure. They do not walk on eggshells around you. They trust that your reactions are not random or emotionally unpredictable. Psychology shows that emotional consistency is deeply respected because it reduces anxiety in interactions. At work, consistency is equally powerful. When colleagues know that your standards do not change based on who is watching, they respect you. When you apply rules fairly and do not show favoritism, your authority becomes legitimate. People may not always agree with you, but they trust your intentions. And trust strengthens professional respect. There is also consistency in self-discipline. When your habits align with your goals, others perceive you as serious and dependable. If you speak about growth but avoid effort, people notice. If you speak about time management but are always late, people notice. Psychology teaches us that behavior is louder than language. Your daily actions form a silent narrative about who you truly are. Consistency also protects you from external pressure. When your values are clear, you are less likely to compromise yourself to fit in. You do not need constant validation because your direction is already defined. This independence is respected because it shows strength of identity. People admire those who are guided by principles rather than popularity. It is important to understand that consistency must be patient. Respect does not appear overnight. It accumulates slowly as people observe you over time. One good action may be forgotten, but repeated alignment leaves an impression. Psychology refers to this as behavioral reliability, the confidence that a person will act in expected, ethical ways. This reliability is a cornerstone of respect. Inconsistency, on the other hand, forces people to stay guarded. They never quite know where you stand. They may admire your words but doubt your follow-through. Over time, this gap between speech and action becomes difficult to ignore. Respect fades not through one major failure, but through many small contradictions. Consistency also applies to how you treat yourself. When you uphold your own standards, even in private, your self-respect grows. This internal respect reflects outwardly. People sense when someone lives with integrity, even when no one is watching. That quiet integrity carries weight. Ultimately, consistency between values, words, and actions is a form of honesty. It is living truthfully, without exaggeration or performance. Psychology shows that people are drawn to those who are real, dependable, and steady. In a world of shifting opinions and changing masks, The one who remains aligned becomes a point of stability. When you live consistently, you do not need to explain yourself constantly. Your life explains you. Your actions speak before your words. And people, observing this harmony over time, consider you someone worthy of trust, reliability, and respect. One of the most subtle yet powerful principles in psychology is that respect grows when a person does not seek it desperately. The more someone chases approval, the more they unknowingly push respect away. This is because human beings instinctively value what appears self-contained, emotionally independent, and internally grounded. When you stop needing constant validation from others, you communicate a deep sense of self-worth, and that self-worth quietly invites respect. Many people believe that respect comes from impressing others, pleasing everyone, or constantly proving value. But psychology shows us that approval-seeking behavior often signals insecurity. When someone changes opinions to fit the room, agrees even when they disagree, or sacrifices their dignity to be liked, people may feel comfortable around them, but comfort is not the same as respect. Over time, such behavior lowers perceived strength of character. True respect is built when you are willing to be misunderstood for the sake of your principles. This does not mean being stubborn or arrogant. It means knowing who you are and not abandoning that identity to gain acceptance. When people see that your sense of worth does not rise or fall based on their reactions, they begin to take you seriously. Independence of self is psychologically associated with confidence, and confidence earns respect. Not seeking validation also allows you to act more authentically. When your actions are not filtered through the question, will they like me? You become more honest. You speak with clarity. You make decisions with conviction. This authenticity creates consistency, and consistency strengthens trust. People may not always agree with your choices, but they respect that those choices come from a stable inner compass. Psychology explains that humans are drawn to those who appear emotionally complete. This does not mean emotionless or detached, but rather not dependent on external approval to feel okay. When someone can stand alone without resentment or bitterness, others sense emotional maturity. Emotional maturity is deeply respected because it reduces manipulation, drama, and insecurity in relationships. Another important aspect is that when you stop seeking respect, you stop performing. You no longer exaggerate, pretend, or compete unnecessarily. You become comfortable with silence. You allow others to have the spotlight without feeling diminished. This communicates abundance rather than lack. And psychologically, people respect those who act from abundance rather than need. There is also a strong connection between self-respect and how others treat you. When you honor your own values, time, and limits without apology, you send a clear message that you value yourself. People learn from your behavior how to interact with you. When you do not beg for attention or approval, others realize that your presence is not dependent on them. This autonomy is respected. Not seeking validation also protects you from emotional manipulation. When your sense of worth comes from within, praise does not inflate you, and criticism does not destroy you. This emotional stability is rare, and rarity attracts respect. Psychology shows that people trust those who are not easily swayed by flattery or fear. Such individuals are seen as grounded and reliable. In conversations, this principle becomes very visible. Someone who does not seek respect, does not interrupt to be heard, does not dominate to feel important, and does not over-explain to justify themselves. They speak when necessary and remain silent when appropriate. Their words feel deliberate rather than defensive. And deliberate speech carries weight. In leadership and influence, this quality is especially powerful. People follow those who are guided by purpose, not applause. When decisions are made based on values rather than popularity, people may resist initially, but over time they recognize integrity. Psychology teaches that integrity outlasts charisma. Charisma may attract attention, but integrity earns lasting respect. There is also freedom in this mindset. When you stop chasing respect, you are no longer controlled by people's moods or opinions. You can show kindness without expecting praise. You can say no without guilt. You can walk away from environments that compromise your dignity. This freedom creates peace. And peaceful people are often respected because they are not chaotic or reactive. It is important to understand that not seeking respect does not mean tolerating disrespect. In fact, it is the opposite. When you respect yourself, you do not argue for dignity. You do not beg for fair treatment. You simply remove yourself or set boundaries. This calm refusal to accept less than what aligns with your values speaks louder than confrontation ever could. Psychology also highlights that people mirror behavior. When you are not overly impressed by others, they often feel more drawn to you. When you are not desperate for their approval, they begin to value yours. This is not manipulation. It is a natural human response to emotional balance. People gravitate toward those who are steady and self-assured. Over time, this way of living builds a quiet reputation. People describe you as confident, grounded, and strong even if you never use those words for yourself. You become someone whose presence feels solid. Someone who does not shift with every wind. Someone who knows their worth without announcing it. In a world where many are exhausted from seeking validation, the person who stands calmly without craving applause becomes rare. And rarity commands respect. When you stop asking, do they respect me? And start asking, am I living with self-respect? Everything changes. Because psychology teaches us this final truth. When respect is no longer your goal, it often becomes a result.